Since most of us were kids, well, at least me dreamed of being able to control one of my favorite characters from the cartoons. The idea of being able to move the cartoon around and seeing the action was a thrilling prospect. And for a few of us, that came way sooner than we thought due to the release of Dragons Lair. So, if you're a fan of this one or just curious how someone got a cartoon playable in a video game in 1983, stick around. The year was, as stated above, 1983. For those of you with a good memory, you may recall this was the year of the downturn in the video game industry in the United States. People were, well, mostly fed up with the amount of junk coming out on consoles and had lost any kind of faith in the industry as a whole. It just seemed to be a passing fad that was now going away, at least in the States. This led to a downturn in the arcade industry as well, and many people thought the video game craze was finally, well, done with, after being popularized heavily by Atari in 1977. Companies were desperate to keep the industry alive, but the old games just weren't drawing people in. And that's where Rick Dyer and Don Bluth came into play. See, Don Bluth was known for, well, several films, one being The Land Before Time, another being The American Tale, and another Secret of NIMH. So, you say, well, what made these animated films so important? Well, his were darker in tone than most of the Disney ones and competed almost just as well. And if you don't believe me, just look at The Secret of NIMH and tell me that's not intense for a kid's film. In fact, it was The Secret of NIMH that got Dyer's attention. You see, Dyer had a company called RDI Video Systems and wanted to get into the video game business. However, they wanted to do something different. They wanted to be able to play an actual cartoon. So they hit up Don Bluth with this idea. Dyer's people would do the programming and Bluth would do the art. How do you pull this off in 1983, you ask? Well, you use a new but not so new technology, the Laserdisc. You see, Laserdisc could do better sound, higher fidelity images, and store more data than was often capable in a standard arcade cabinet or in modern carts at the time. Given what they wanted to do, this seemed to be the perfect fit. There were a few issues with this though. You see, while Laserdisc was great at playing music and movies, it wasn't the most flexible of formats. Data would have to be read off the disc constantly, making giving the player full control over a character kind of tricky. Sega had gotten around this earlier by using more pixelated graphics for this on-screen character that you would control, and the Laserdisc itself for producing more realistic backdrops. Dyer didn't really want to do that as he wanted you to move the main character, and he wanted you to play the cartoon character and feel like you're really in a cartoon. As you can imagine, this was going to be a challenge, but with $1 million in hand, the studio got to work. Now for this money, they couldn't really afford voice actors at the time, so they made do with people they had in the office, using the majority of the money that they had on programming and the 13 animators that did 50,000 drawings by hand, painted onto cells and scanned into the hand-drawn backgrounds. There were 24 drawings for each second of on-screen time. Legend has it they even drew popular inspiration by looking at Playboy centerfolds at the time for their inspiration for Princess Daphne's design. And it definitely shows in her rather, ridiculous proportions, let's say. You would think that this would be some amazing game that people would be talking about still, on paper. And, it was a hugely aspirational game with hand-drawn backgrounds and characters and larger-than-life death scenes and a gorgeous damsel. This is where things kind of start to fall apart because some of the issues, well, the majority of the issues came down in the gameplay, and that's a twofold problem. The first problem, and kind of the larger elephant in the room, is the company hadn't made a video game before. This was their first one, and they really didn't know what they were doing, which limited what they could do due to lack of experience. Secondly, there was an issue with the Laserdisc itself. Again, while Laserdisc gave you better sound and visual capability, it didn't really fit well with things that needed quick response times. That's one of the reasons Sega used pixel graphics for the ship in Astron Belt and used Laserdisc as the background. It simply worked better from a gameplay perspective. As a result of not understanding this or not wanting to ruin the aesthetic they were going for with Dragons Lair, well, it played a little bit like a long QuickTime event. You see, you had a joystick and one button. You would move Dirk in a given direction where there would be a flash on the screen or hit an attack button. It wasn't always clear which direction or if you were supposed to move or attack in any given scenario, which led to a lot of trial and error in the gameplay in order to learn how to navigate the game. You also didn't always play scenes in the same order or all the scenes all together to make it through the game in any one gameplay. That was deliberate to add an element of randomness and replayability to the game overall. The issue with this kind of gameplay is, one, it's kind of really limited and a little disjointed. In short, you don't really feel like you're controlling Dirk in this game, more like you're reacting to what's going on the screen. Secondly, it's insanely and maddeningly frustrating because of the lack of control. Couple this with the fact that Laserdisc players weren't really rated for working for long, extended periods of time, and you had a cabinet that frustrated players, making them either dump a ton of money to master the game and never play it again, or just walk away and say to heck with it. As well, the cabinet would have to have frequent maintenance to keep it operating. So while it initially did very well for itself, it tapered off. But it did do well enough to get a sequel in Dragons Lair 2 and another game known as Space Ace, all roughly playing in a similar manner. However, what do you guys think of this one? Did any of you ever beat it, and how long did it take you? Would you like to see more games done in the style now that the technology is caught up enough to basically do it justice? And what would that game look like? Let me know in the comments. For now though, thank you so much for making it this far in the video and spending part of your day with me. If I could ask you for one more favor, please leave this video a like. And if you haven't, consider following. It helps me out a ton. Till we meet again though, have a great rest of your day and happy gaming.